Journal entry on December 1st, 2019. Entry number 0012. The following is a journal entry found from Dr. Charles Dubois, entered into the Galactic Time Archives to be witnessed for all beings.
What is the light? What is the light that guides us in the darkness? I was once like you. I was once lost, my heart asunder, my vision of the future blurred by my own mind, by my own fears, and it was with him that I found the light of Chad. When the sun rose, I was lost in my own fears, rushing to get to work on a project that I'd been working my whole life, a project that I knew could change all of the world, perhaps all of time. All across my apartment were books, papers stacked, sprawled in all directions. On the walls were various equations and geometries I was convinced were the key. Chalkboards with many equations and diagrams, each one I was convinced held the truth. Particles and matter, they had mysteries within them that told secrets waiting to be unlocked. I was broke, all of my money, all of my grants had been poured into this research. I was trying to crack an equation that could change the very fabric of reality, the very fabric of space and time itself.
Dr. Charles Dubois pulled into the parking lot of the research facility, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts and calculations. For months now, he had been grappling with a seemingly insurmountable problem in his quantum mechanics research, and the weight of it was beginning to take its toll. As he stepped out of his car, Charles glanced up at the imposing building that housed his lab and sighed. Today, he hoped, would be the day he would find the breakthrough he so desperately needed. Upon entering the facility, Charles greeted his colleagues with a weary smile before making his way to his lab. The room was a chaotic mess of papers, whiteboards covered in equations, and complex machinery designed to test the limits of quantum physics. As he settled in, Charles couldn't help but feel the familiar frustration creeping in once more. He looked at the clock, noting that he'd been staring at the same equations for hours, and decided it was time for a break. Stepping outside for some fresh air, Charles walked along a quiet path that wound through a small garden adjacent to the research facility. The soothing sounds of rustling leaves and birdsong helped to clear his mind, but the nagging problem still lingered. As he continued to walk, Charles couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He paused and glanced around, searching for the source of the sensation. That's when he noticed a white cat with striking blue eyes sitting beneath a nearby tree. The cat was staring at him intently, its gaze almost piercing through him. Charles felt an inexplicable sense of calm wash over him, a stark contrast to the frustration he had been experiencing moments before. All of a sudden, a flock of birds bursted from nearby on an electrical wire. Startled, the doctor looked up. When he looked back down, the cat was gone. Charles shook his head, wondering if his mind was playing tricks on him. Reluctantly, he decided it was time to return to the lab and face the seemingly unsolvable equations once again. As he walked back to the building, the image of the white cat with blue eyes lingered in his thoughts. Upon re-entering the lab, Charles found his colleague, Dr. Susan Thompson, hunched over her own set of calculations. She looked up and noticed the troubled expression on Charles's face. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she remarked half-jokingly. "Anything wrong?" Charles hesitated before admitting, "I thought I saw something strange outside, but it's probably just my mind playing tricks on me. We've been working so hard on these equations that I'm starting to see things." Susan nodded, understanding the pressure they were both under. "Speaking of our research," she began cautiously, "I received a call from the board this morning. They're concerned about our lack of progress. They're threatening to cut our funding if we don't show some tangible results soon." Charles's heart sank at the news. The weight of their research became even more burdensome, knowing that their careers and the future of their project were at stake. He took a deep breath and tried to regain his composure. "All right, let's regroup and see if we can find a fresh angle to approach this problem. We can't let our work be for nothing." For the rest of the day, Charles and Susan worked tirelessly, attempting to find a breakthrough in their research. As the hours wore on, Charles found himself repeatedly glancing out the window, half expecting to see the enigmatic white cat again. Though it never reappeared, the feline's image remained etched in his mind. The following day, Charles arrived at the lab with a renewed sense of determination. He and Susan had been working on a groundbreaking quantum mechanics experiment related to time travel and vibration, hoping to unveil the secrets of the universe. However, their efforts had been met with failure time and again, and they were no closer to finding the answers they sought. Charles adjusted the settings on the machinery, taking meticulous notes on each change he made. Susan monitored the readings, her eyes darting back and forth between the screens as she searched for any sign of progress. With a deep breath, Charles initiated the experiment once more, hoping for a different outcome this time. The machinery hummed to life, but as the seconds ticked by, it became clear that the results were the same as before. The experiment had failed. Charles slammed his fist on the table, his frustration mounting. "I just don't understand it," he exclaimed. "We've tried everything and still nothing works. The equations should be sound, and yet we're missing something crucial." Susan, ever the voice of reason, tried to offer some comfort. "We'll figure this out, Charles. We've faced challenges before, and we've always found a way to overcome them." Charles sighed, running his fingers through his hair. "I know, but time is running out. We can't afford any more setbacks. What if the key to unlocking the secrets of time travel is right in front of us, and we just can't see it?" As the two colleagues pondered their predicament, Charles couldn't help but think back to the mysterious white cat with blue eyes that he had encountered in the garden. He wondered if it had really been there. For a moment he wished the cat could tell him the answer. Shaking his head, he dismissed the thought as absurd. After all, what could a cat possibly have to do with quantum mechanics and time travel? Charles found himself staying late into the night at the lab, poring over complex frequency equations. His eyes burned from exhaustion, and the numbers on the page seemed to blur together. He leaned back in his chair, removing his glasses and rubbing his eyes in a futile attempt to ease the strain. As he sat there, feeling defeated, he heard a faint meow from outside. He glanced up and saw a brown tabby cat sitting at the window, its gaze fixed on him. Despite his exhaustion, Charles couldn't help but smile. He got up, opened the window, and gently stroked the cat's soft fur. The tabby began to purr, a low, soothing vibration that seemed to resonate throughout the room. Listening to the cat's purring, a sudden thought struck Charles. What if they needed to change the signature frequency of the device through an interpolated equation instead of all at once? The idea seemed almost too simple, but he couldn't shake the feeling that it might just be the solution they had been searching for. With renewed energy, Charles spent the rest of the night refining his equations and making the necessary adjustments. By morning, he had a new set of calculations to test. Excitedly, he shared his findings with Susan, who was equally enthusiastic about the potential breakthrough. Together, they input the new equation into the machinery and initiated the experiment once more. To their amazement, they observed the establishment of a cohesive field, and their sensors picked up new emissions that hadn't been present before. The two scientists exchanged a look of elation. They had finally made progress in their quest to understand the mysteries of time travel and vibration. As Charles and Susan eagerly analysed the data, they couldn't help but feel that they were on the cusp of a monumental discovery. Charles looked up in excitement to see the tabby staring at him through the window. For a moment, it was as if it knew what had happened. The new discovery, while exciting, didn't guarantee further funding. To prove its predictability and usefulness, more modelling was required to interest investors. The interpolated equations needed for time dilation made Charles realise that he had been approaching the entire process incorrectly. His years of training in mechanics and experience with heavy machinery and labs had always led him to seek direct answers. Now, however, he saw the challenge as creating an environment where sustained time dilation was possible. Every night for the next few weeks, the tabby appeared at precisely 8:12 p.m. Charles and the cat became good friends. Fresh fish from the nearby market certainly helped in the endeavour. Having a small creature to care for and converse with ease Charles's mental strain and the lab's harsh atmosphere. He began talking to the cat regularly, sharing details about his equations, activities, and challenges. Although he knew the cat couldn't comprehend him, the companionship and mutual respect were comforting. Something about the cat intrigued Charles. During his breaks, he enjoyed petting the cat and listening to its purring, a simple yet unique phenomenon. Few animals in the animal kingdom purr, at least to his knowledge, and when they do, they seem deeply content. The cat would often sit like a sphinx, its eyes closed, kneading just off the window ledge, seemingly present, yet also elsewhere. This contemplation led Charles to a profound realization. When time dilation occurs, it doesn't just affect a single point in space-time, but a local area, relative to Earth's rotation and broader cosmic movements. The Earth relative to the Sun relative to the centre of the galaxy, and the galaxy relative to the centre of the universe. His mind began to grasp for a way to model this. It wasn't just local, but non-local. Both had to be accounted for. One could only know their location in space and time through the relative path of spheres related to other spheres. The largest bodies, like stars and planets, created local space-time dilations, while galaxies held those solar orbits throughout the universe. If time slowed or accelerated at one location, the signature frequency of that space situated it within a new time sphere. This new sphere provided access to a different series of time signatures. One could only determine their position in space and time by understanding the relationships between these spheres. Larger celestial bodies like stars and planets created local space-time dilations, which galaxies, in turn, orchestrated these solar orbits on a universal scale. Charles grasped that every moment was fraught with potential. To adjust vibrations in one locality would be to alter the probabilities of cascading events or spheres in that location. He slowly rose and walked over to his chalkboard, flipping it to a fresh side. There, he began drawing spheres and mapping them through correlated spatial geometry. In that moment, he understood something revolutionary. He had been using the wrong number system and perhaps even base for his time equations. This was not an easy thought to accept. As he sketched spheres within spheres, he recognized that a Euclidean system would not adequately model his theory. Just then, the town clock struck midnight. The echoing chimes resonated through the quiet streets, and the sphinx-like cat on the windowsill briefly opened its eyes. Charles stepped back, his mind visualizing the endless spheres, each forever shrinking and expanding in all directions. What he saw was a fractal stretching through the universe and time, enveloping countless multiverses, potentials, and realities. An endless fractal of boundless expression emanating from a single point, yet contained within all points.